And welcome to Sports Check on this Monday morning. It's the last day of January 2023 and a very busy day for us in the newsroom. So good morning to you. My name is Daniel Wahome. Sports Check, where we talk sport, but today, not so much sport we'll talk about because there are two events where His Excellency, the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, is attending, and they are both in Mombasa. One of them is the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions in Kenya is hosting the annual general meeting and Africa Prosecutors Association conference. And this conference started yesterday and it's going to run till Thursday, the 2nd of February. So this is taking place in Mombasa. And also the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association is hosting a conference for what is known as a post-election seminar. This is for first-time and returning members of the National Assembly. So, and the President is also going to be addressing that function. Now, for a lot of parents, today is another busy day. If you had children going back to school for, standard 8 and grades 1 to 6, that was a busy day. And for those who are now in Form 2 to Form 4, today is another one because grade 7 learners report to junior secondary school. And the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Ezekiel Machogu, is going to be at the Nairobi Primary School. So that's where they he's going to, oversee the transition from grade 6 to grade 7 for the new learners. This is the date that had been set. And then there is a new police unit that's going to be launched today. It is known as the Water Police Unit. You know about the Airport Police Unit, the Port Police Unit, the Railway Police Unit. But now there is a Water Police Unit. So those are some of the stories that we are going to be taking a look at. Sporting-wise, we should be talking about beach volleyball, athletics. There is a lot happening in athletics. This is a world championship year, but something happened in December. World Athletics sent some communication out to member associations, and for those who never met the entry standards in 2022, there is a new way in which it's going to happen, and even member federations now have got to change the way they host local events. So we're going to be speaking about that, but first, we're going to have a conversation about the sport that nobody plays. It's known as boxing. And pugilists, people do that, and they always have that conversation. We're not going to be talking about pro boxing. We're going to be talking about amateur boxing. And this is a very busy year for the Boxing Federation of Kenya and globally. And we're just talking about the next 6 months, 6 or 7 months, basically. Up to the African Games. There's going to be an activity in February, in March, in April, and this is at different age grades. To speak about that, we are joined by Duncan Kuria, who is the Communications Director at the Boxing Federation of Kenya. Duncan, welcome.
Yes. Thank you.
And, I'm just taking a look at the Boxing Federation of Kenya calendar, and one of the things that I would like to speak before we delve into other things is the focus on novices and the intermediates, and we've seen that happening over the weekend. What's that shift? Because, everyone accepts Kenya is not where they used to be 20 or so years ago in the sport. But what's this focus, and what have you seen with these two events?
Actually, this is the second event of the year. Our first event was we started with the Youth and Junior Boxing Championship, which we did early in the year from January 4th to 6th. And now we are in our second event of the year, which is the National Novices. Although what was happening over the weekend was the selection for county teams. Mm-hmm. So I attended the novices for Team Nairobi. Kajiado did theirs. Across the country they were happening. So because next week we expect to be holding the National Novices, which will be held at Umoja Boxing Club in Umoja, here in Nairobi. And I'm expecting all the teams from all the counties in the country to send teams to participate, because this is the stage where the boxers begin their boxing journey. It's for the beginners, the novices. So these are the guys who have joined boxing recently. Some of them were boxing as juniors or as youth. Mm-hmm. Now they are graduating into the senior category. They start with the novices. And then from the novices, we are going to graduate to intermediate. From intermediate, then we go to the National Open. The National Open is supposed to happen somewhere in April. Yes. So that's where now we select our tentative national team to do assignment over the year if we are going to have different assignments and you don't have time to select to do trials, the guys who will have won the Open are the ones who are tentatively going to form the national boxing team to do assignment over the year.
Now, boxing, by virtue of it being at direct contact sports and full impact sports, what's the message that's being sent out to the county associations across the country, such that coaches do not necessarily fast track a boxer, say from a novice to an intermediate, when they are not ready?
Actually, it's very important for the coaches to look at development of boxers at the local level. And I think that's where now as a federation we also come in to see how we regulate the coaching and ensure that we have coaches who are qualified. They do understand how boxers are supposed to progress from the junior, you go to youth, you go to senior, and then from the senior you start at the novices level, you go to intermediate level, then you graduate to Kenya Open level, because we cannot be able to afford to risk the life of a person by, for instance, having a novice boxer competing against an international. It's not fair.
Yes.
So we try to avoid such scenarios, and that's why we also have our records. Every time we are having a tournament, we keep our records of the entries that are there so that we are able to regulate the people who are competing within that category. Sometimes you find some counties, because we have a lot of counties who are starting boxing recently, and you see they are sending boxers who are not ripe to compete at the maybe national league level. We have to see that the people who are coming for this championship are the ones who are qualified. For you to compete at the national level, you must have competed at the novices level and then qualified at the intermediate level. So there you can compete in our national league. But you cannot be competing in our national league and then you go and compete at the novices level, because you'll be hurting somebody who is fresh and try to come out to get into the sport. So we normally try to ensure that our coaches send the right people to compete representing their respective counties, and we observe that those who are qualified maybe at a very high level do not go down to try and compete against weaker opponents, because they are more experienced than them, to try to find a shortcut to maybe just to get points, because when you are qualified, you are past intermediate level, again you go compete at the novices level. It doesn't make sense. It's like somebody who is in secondary school going to nursery school.
Well, downgrading, and there are those who would do that. So let's now actually talk about something that happened, was in Dar es Salaam.
Yes.
The East African Youth Championships.
Yes.
What were the takeouts from that? Because that's where you now are going to have, those who probably now will move to the novice level before they go up the ranks.
Yeah, we had a scenario sometimes late last year in November when we had the World Youth Championships, which were happening in Spain. And unfortunately, we were not able to send our team because of financial constraints. Last minute, the ministry told us they could not facilitate us to take the team to the World Championship. And we had already prepared the team, and it was in camp. Actually, the last day when we were supposed to travel, when we were informed that we will not be traveling for that assignment. And so we thought it's very important that we try and get an international tournament to engage these youthful boxers, because it was the first time for them to be going outside the country to compete. And they were very enthusiastic. Some of them had made very huge sacrifices. You're going to school, there's sacrifice to combine boxing and schooling, so that you're coming to attend training sessions, and at the same time you're preparing for exams. We had such scenarios. So we thought it's very important that we try and organize for an international assignment for them. And they went there and competed very well. We won 4 gold medals, 1 silver and 2 bronze for the youth guys. And we think that is going now to prepare them as they graduate, because some of them will never compete at the youth level, that stage which they missed going to Spain. So now they have to graduate to the seniors. And I have actually seen a lot of them at the Nairobi Intermediate. I saw a number of the youths who are in the team that went to Dar es Salaam, and the ones who are supposed to go to Spain competed and they won. They'll be coming to the national novices representing Team Nairobi, and others we expected to represent their respective county teams. So I'm thinking it's very good for us to give them good foundation at the youth level, and as they graduate into the senior, they're going to have a confidence of having competed internationally and maybe won a fight. And we think that is the way to go, but we need to do more of those tournaments. Also, as maybe Africa Zone 3, where our president, Mr. Anthony Jamal, is the president of Africa Zone 3, we need to organize youth group boxing tournaments so that we can be able to compete against our neighbors and see where we are. Because if we give so much attention to the youth development, I think it's going to put us in a very good place as we graduate and try to reclaim our position being a boxing superhouse in Africa and the world. We really need to invest in our juniors and youth boxing so that we are able to have good depth that can be built into when we come into the seniors.
And talking about the youth, there is the Anoka Youth Africa Championships. So let's take a look at how this is going to work, because we also know we've got the later we're going to have the Africa Youth Team and Elite Women Championships.
Yeah, that was supposed to. It was actually supposed to happen sometimes last year, and it was postponed for some reasons. It was supposed to happen in Cairo, Egypt. There are some challenges in terms of hosting that tournament. It didn't take place, so we are hoping this time it's going to take place, and some of these youths who are competing at the novices level, those who have not attended that age group of graduating, are still going to participate in that.
What's the cutoff age for this?
17 years old. Yeah, so I am very happy with what the National Olympic Committee of Kenya is doing, trying to organize camps where these young guys normally go for camping when they are on school vacation. This time they had gone someplace in Isinya to prepare. And as a federation, we are also doing very well, because for the last 2 camps that they have held, they go for camping for 2 weeks. But for us, we have been lucky because as a federation, we organize, they do 1 week in camp and then they go for a tournament. They gauge themselves. So last time we had a tournament which was the National Junior and Youth Boxing Championship. They went to camp, then they came and competed. Fortunately, all of them won. This time round, they went to camp for 1 week. The next week, they all went to Tanzania. They competed, which is very good for them. So we are trying to...
And naturally, they brought the 8 medals.
Yeah, they got a lot of medals. So I'm seeing there's a very bright future for us, because if we continue nurturing this talent and guiding them well, I believe we have potential to produce more boxers who are ready to compete at the highest level, and not just to compete to go and win medals. So I believe, because we also have some very qualified coaches handling them, and one of the coaches who was with the youth this time was Commander Nico Koth, who is the immediate former national team captain. Nico Koth, who has done so much for this country. I believe he is a motivating factor also to the young boxers, because they have seen him box, being the captain of the national team, representing Kenya in Olympics, All Africa, Commonwealth, name it, all the tournaments there is, Nick has competed in them. And so I believe he's a motivating factor to the young guys when they see him doing, and normally, now he trains just like them. So he doesn't issue more instruction, he teaches by doing. So I believe it's a very good way for us to also capacity build in terms of coaching also, because we also need to give Nick experience of coaching the young guys. And once he becomes of an age, maybe one day he'll be able to replace his mentor, who is Coach Benjamin Moses, who is the national team head coach.
Now, you've spoken about coaching, and I think Kenya needs to know this. The longest serving coach of the hit squad, Peter Mwarangu, passed away. Mwarangu's impact was so huge. You can think from 1968.
Yes.
On for 30 years. I mean, and Duncan, you know what Mwarangu personally, because you have been in his squad.
Yes. When
representing the country at the African Games, Johannesburg '99.
Yes.
And that. This is the point where you can now put out, your tribute to him, because you mentioned coaches here.
Yeah, maybe it's very good you brought this one up, because we need to pass my condolences to the family and friends of the late Coach Peter Mwarangu. Mwarangu was head coach of the national boxing team for the longest time ever. And I think his achievements as a coach will take a very long time to get anything close to that, because when Africa won its first Olympic gold medal in Seoul, 1988, Robert Wangila, Morangu was the head coach. When Philip Waroinge became the first African and the only one to win best boxer at the Olympic Games, 1968, Mexico City, Warangu was the coach. So you see, and that's when Kenya won the first medal.
And there is a story of 1978.
Yes, 1978, when Stephen Mushoki won gold medal at the World Championship, and it's the only gold medal that Kenya has won at the World Championship in Belgrade. Again, Morangu was the coach. So I believe Morangu has guided the national team to win 4 Olympic medals. That includes the 68 bronze by Waroinge and the best boxer, and then 84 Saf Bilali, and then 88 2 medals. We have gold medal by Robert Wangila and Chris Sande, bronze medal. So I believe that's a huge achievement that Coach Morangu has won. And we have not mentioned King's Cup Bangkok,
by the way,
where he has won so many Commonwealth Games, all African Games. So the medals that the country has won when Morangu is at the helm of the hit squad are so many that we cannot even start tabulating the numbers here. But I believe he was a very good coach. He was a strict disciplinarian. I believe if you are a coward in the ring, you will not be you're not a friend of Morangu.
You have to be, I mean, the fact that you're already in the ring.
No, you know, sometimes you have some kind of boxers who like fighting when they're running away. He didn't like that. He wanted somebody who is very courageous. You're going forward, you are attacking. He liked that. And personally, I was not at some point, I was not a very good friend of his, because I really used to beat his boys from Denderu. And so whoever he'll bring, I'll stop them. I was that good that time. So, but he had to like me, because now I had to be in the national team. And I read a lot of history about him. And then when I joined the senior national team, he was my coach when I was going for the All Africa Games in Johannesburg, 1999. And I could see what I had been reading as history now replaying itself reality when I'm already there in the national team. So I had an experience of working with him. I became a captain of the national team when he was a coach. And so I know it's, apart from that coaching, he was also a very good administrator, because all this time also when he was coach, he was still an official of the federation, and a very influential one at that. Because Morangu is somebody who, if you maybe you're not observing discipline and you are in the national team, he'll drop you and he'll tell you will not make national team, and for sure you will not make. And for those, there's some who have got history with him, and for instance, the late Dimosho Mondi, 84.
Oh, that's a crazy story.
There's a scenario they had where he had even to be deported from Los Angeles Olympic Games. And from there, he didn't make national team. So Morangu was that strict. Once he identified that you are problematic in terms of discipline, he'll call you a problem and you'll not make his team. So he was a strict disciplinarian, a very good leader. And he's going to be laid to rest tomorrow at Langata Cemetery. The funeral service will be happening at ACK Madaraka from 10. And I believe the burial will take place from about 1 p.m. at Langata Cemetery. So those who can be able to make it to Langata, kindly attend, and we give our coach a decent send-off.
Well, I know some may say that's a very huge obituary that we've received. And you know, it's quite interesting, 68, 78, 88.
Yeah. Oh, I had not seen that.
There is a pattern, by the way,
about
this goal, about these huge successes coming through under the late coach Peter Morangu, who's going to be laid to rest tomorrow. That's a fallen soldier of Kenya, and condolences to the family and the boxing fraternity. Now, let's come up now. It's going to be what I would call a crazy year for the coaching staff, because we're sticking to that, and also the management of the boxing fraternity.
Yes.
Olympic qualification is this year. through the African Games, and that is in August. But also, we have got the Men's World Championships. I'll start with that.
Yes.
Ideally, we know there are 12 weight classes. But at the Olympics, they've come down to 7.
Yes.
What conundrum is that?
It's a very serious conundrum. It's a serious headache to the coaches and also to the boxers, because it means there are boxers who will have to move weights during this year so that they are ready for the Olympic qualifiers, since their respective weight which they compete in locally will not be taking place, will not be participating at the Olympic Games. Personally, I feel it's very unfair that the IOC, International Olympic Committee, decides to reduce the number of male boxers competing at the Olympic Games, trying to promote or to maybe increase the number of women boxers, because the weights for women are increasing by 3. We had 3 in Tokyo and in Rio. This time they're going to be 6. And for the first time, we are going to have 50-50 gender parity for boxing at the Paris Olympic Games. So in terms of men, we are going to have a very serious problem, because there are going to be 7 weight categories. IBA weights, we have 13 weights. But now in the Olympics, we have 7. With 7, we have flyweight, we have featherweight, lightweight. The lightweight, which is at the Olympic weight, is normally what we call light welterweight here, which is 63.5.
Yeah.
So from featherweight is 57. So those who are from 57 to 63.5 will all be fighting in the same category during the Olympics. Then we don't have welterweight. We are going to have...
Okay. So that's a 6 kg gap.
Yes,
Yet,
which is...
ideally, at these lower weights, the gap is 3 kilos.
Yeah, ideally, that's how it should be. But me personally, I feel it's a problematic fighting at lightweight. And normally it has a lot of people. It's one of the weights that has the hugest number at the games. So you see, you can easily meet somebody who is 57.5 fighting against somebody who is 63 kgs. It's not fair, but that it is what it is. So for that weight category, we had a problem even when we went to Tokyo for the Olympic Games. But unfortunately, nothing has been done about it. Now, what has happened with the 67 category, where we had welterweight, now welterweight has been dropped again. So we won't have welterweight, we're going to have light middleweight, which is 71 kgs. Again, we don't have middleweight, which is 75 kgs. We have light heavyweight, which is 80. And then we don't have cruiserweight. We have heavyweight at 92 and super heavyweight at 92 plus. So we have a problem whereby those boxers who are maybe minimum weight, light flyweight and bantamweight, they have to make a decision whether to go to flyweight or if to go to featherweight. That's a huge
in kilos, just put that so that our audience can understand.
Yes.
When you say minimum...
minimum weight is from 45 kgs to 48. Now, we have those who are fighting at the ones who are 48 and the ones who are at 54 kgs. Those weight categories are not participating at the Olympic Games. We only have 51. So they have to make a decision to come to 51. And then from flyweight, we go to featherweight, which is 57 kgs. So the boxers who are in 54, they have to make a decision whether to drop to 51 or to go up to 57. The boxers who used to be in 60 kgs, we don't have 60 kgs lightweight. They have to go down to 57 or go up to 63.5. That's a huge number, a huge group. Then you have boxers who are in 69. 69, you have to drop to 63 or go to 71. The ones who are in 75 kgs middleweight, they have to drop to 71 or go to 80. And the ones who are in 86, which is cruiserweight, they have to either go to 92 or drop to 80, which now it looks more realistic to go up so that we have more heavyweights. So that's the problem that the coaches and the boxers are going to try to solve, so that we ensure that we have the right boxers competing for places to the national team for the Olympic qualifiers.
And this would come with the Olympic Games experience. What was the experience of having boxers now, move around the divisions?
There's a problem to do with cutting weight. I'm happy our National Olympic Committee does a lot of good work trying to come up with experts to guide in some of these matters, because sometimes you find boxers who are trying to diet, you're starving yourself so that you don't increase weight. So sometimes you don't cut the weight the right way. It makes you very weak when you're going for competition. So those challenges are going to be even more this time round. Sometimes they also, it affects somebody psychologically. You can imagine somebody trying to shed about 10 kgs.
Actually, shedding 4 kgs for a boxer is serious, because we are talking about where, what do they say? It's at around the welter middleweight where you pick speed and power.
Yes.
Then after that, it's power with
power. But you see now, the challenge that we normally encounter, normally boxers want to go down so that they go to weight categories where they are stronger. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you cut weight so much that by the time you're competing, you don't have energy. Again, sometimes it affects them psychologically. And I'm happy this time we also get experts who are dealing with matter psychology within the national team. Unfortunately, when we are now dealing as a federation, we don't have psychological expertise to help our boxers when they are maybe shedding weight. But at the national team level, I'm happy National Olympic Committee provides for that. Sometimes it affects somebody psychologically. You see somebody it's like they're not thinking right because of how they are punishing their body to try to get into specific weight categories. And then now, maybe when now generally talking about the Olympic qualifiers, I think it's going to be very tricky, because we also have what we are calling quotas allocated to different continents. And this time it's also again very unfortunate that we are going to have the least number of boxers representing Africa, because for the first Olympic qualifier, which will be the Africa Games, which will be held in Accra, Ghana, in August, that will be the first qualifier. Mm-hmm. For men, only 7 boxers will qualify out of that qualifier, which is not right. Only the gold medalists will qualify for the Olympic Games from the first qualifier, which is All Africa Games.
So the implication is then the African Games have got to use the 7 weight divisions, whether they like it or not, if they're supposed to be
now fairness. That's another, now we don't know how the organizers are thinking about that, because I don't know, they can maybe play with it so that they use IBA weights, but now for those respective weight category where they are the ones which are Olympic qualifiers, those guys qualify for Olympics. I don't know what they'll do, but like what happens with the 2019 Africa Games, they only used the Olympic weights. Mm-hmm. So it limits also the number of boxers who are to compete maybe for the Africa Games, because now it becomes an Olympic qualifier and only the Olympic weights are featuring. And that also gives now the headache to the coaches much earlier, because when you are selecting the boxers to represent the country in the Africa Games, then you think of it as a qualifier, and only the boxers in those weight category that will feature in the Olympics will be participating. It's a big problem that we have to deal with. But again, I don't think this is a problem that the International Federation, which is IBA, is having with the IOC.
Yes, they've not had the best of relations.
Yeah, the relations have been so bad.
The Rio fiasco.
Yes, so the relations have been so bad that even when they're making some of these decisions, IBA input is not sought. So there's a conundrum that needs to be sorted there. But going forward, the future doesn't look very bright for Olympic boxing. I hope the leadership of IOC and IBA will sit and maybe come to an agreement on how they need to handle matters boxing at the Olympic level, because when you come to 2028, boxing is not in the program for 2028 Olympic Games.
I was about to mention that, because you can imagine an Olympic Games without boxing.
It's not right, and it's in America.
And it's in the US.
America loves boxing.
And this is the country that gave us a bronze medalist in 1996. Floyd Mayweather went on to become unbeaten, 50-0, 1960. We had an Olympic gold medalist, Muhammad Ali. He went on to become one of the, is considered one of the greatest heavyweights. He won that gold. I mean, Mike Tyson, we can go on. Evander Holyfield.
Yeah, and also in women boxing, Clarence Shield won gold in London and in Rio. So they have a good history in boxing of getting medals.
So that's, you can imagine, LA without boxing. So that means the whole federation is out. And boxing was considered to be one of the core sports of the Olympics throughout.
Maybe in the same regards, now when you talk to qualifier, being Africa Games is the first qualifier. Then we have 2 other qualifiers. These are world qualifiers. And in those world qualifiers, only the medalists, which is the ones who win gold, silver, and 2 bronze medals, will be qualifying. And there is no guarantee those will be from Africa. So that's why I can say authoritatively that this time round, Africa is going to have the least number of participants at the Olympic Games, because how the quota system has been done by IOC, it seems to disadvantage Africa. And I don't understand the reasons why they are doing that, because in other continents, you are finding 4 boxers are qualifying in their first qualifiers.
Yes.
For us, it's only 1. Doesn't seem to be right. Although, again, it's maybe from the women's side, it's a bit better, because for women's side, it's the gold and silver will qualify for Olympics at the Africa Games.
That makes it 12.
For the lower weights, no. For the super heavyweight, it's for the middleweight, for them, it's only 1, 75 kgs. So about 10 girls will qualify for Olympics, the first qualifier, which is Africa Games. And now going forward, again, now they apply the same, which the first world qualifier and second world qualifier medalists, in those are the only ones who are going to qualify. But again, now this way, now we also plead to our Olympic Committee and our Ministry of Sports, our government, to support us, so that we are able to give our boxers exposure early enough, so that when you are going for these qualifiers, we are able to compete in them effectively and try to secure these limited spaces that will be available for the Olympic Games, because getting 1 boxer to qualify per weight in each weight category, it's not easy. When Wangila was winning gold medal in 1988, Kenya was sending a full team.
Yes.
We didn't have qualifying standards.
Even if we were to qualify using what's being said here from the African Games, Kenya would have had 10.
Yes, because Africa Games, we had won 8 gold medals.
8 gold medals.
It was fantastic. So now we have a problem in that where we used to send a full team as a country, now we are sending 1 person from the entire continent, 54 countries, sending 1 boxer. It's not right.
Well, there's so much that's got to be said, and the quota allocations. And we're talking about what, 124?
124 for men,
124 for women.
So 248 for boxing at the Paris Olympic Games.
And that process starts there. And that selection process now, as we head to the National Open, and from the experiences of the competitions that you've had, the Commonwealth Games, when you traveled to Russia for the European Boxing Board, where Kenya was invited. And by the way, when I say Russia, not around Moscow, they were closer to South Korea.
Oh, Russia is big. It's called Khabarovsk. Khabarovsk is 8 hours from Moscow on flight. And it's a very weird flight. The most weird flight I've ever been in, where on one side of the flight it was day, and on the other side it's night.
Okay.
Yes, it's that weird.
All right, I need to go back and take a look at my geography as you look up north, because, I mean, basically you are in the middle of day and night.
Yes.
That is the crazy, that is crazy, if I was to say that. That is crazy enough. But yes, you've been there, and also you went to the World Championships.
Yes.
And the Africa Zone 3 Championships, or, have been bringing out, some of these things.
Yes.
How then would you tailor this? Competitions that you've done, and the boxers were still active, such that they fit within these particular divisions. That's just the men's side before I come to the women's side.
It's a bit tricky, because now you see now for these boxers, when we go for some of these competitions, especially now, like we go for Zone 3. Zone 3 we use IBA weights.
Yes.
IBA weights are 13 in number. So you see now when you come to Olympic qualifier, it's like half has been reduced, because you're having to reduce from 13 to 7. So As a federation, we have a serious headache because it means you have to start advising these boxers to now go to strategic weight divisions where they are to compete. Now, for somebody, for instance, let me give an example using somebody like Shafi Bakari. Shafi Bakari is our national bantamweight champion, and he won a silver medal at the 2019 Africa Games in Rabat. This time round, he is competing at 54 kgs bantamweight. Now, Shafi has a decision to make whether to drop to 51 kgs flyweight, where he competed at the last Africa Games, or to go to 57 featherweight, where we also have a very good boxer in Samuel Njau at the moment. Samuel Njau won a silver medal at Africa Championship late last year. So when you look at it, Njau looks a bright prospect that has potential to qualify for the Olympics at featherweight category. When you look at the team again now with Shafi has a problem there because I'm aware of having been with the team for a long time. I know there's somewhere we went and he really struggled to make 51. That's why, and he was crying tears. That's why he had to go to bantamweight, because he was struggling to make 51. And now, being that he has been comfortable at 54, having to drop to 51 will be a huge problem. And so I don't know how it will be, but he might have to go up to featherweight. Featherweight now he brings a complication to Njau and others who are there, including somebody like Isaac Major.
Yeah, but the fans say this now, we've got some competition.
Yeah, it might be competition.
I mean, as a coach, I would love to have that headache. Where you've got 3 boxers to pick from.
Yes, but you see now, sometimes it's a good problem when you have serious depth. But now you see now, for instance, we have that headache at featherweight. When we go to lightweight, we'll get a serious complication because we have a number of youthful boxers who are coming up, the like of Frederick Onyango from Nairobi, the like of Boniface Mose from Kibra, the likes of Shigali from Police. We also have somebody from Police again. No, Police has got, we have Victor Onyango from KDF. There's somebody, Ethan Maina, has represented at like welterweight and at lightweight. So all those boxers, you need to select one to compete at lightweight, which is now for Olympic qualifier. So you see now you have to drop one good boxer there to pick the very best amongst them, and the one you think will compete very well at the Olympic qualifiers, so that you are able to get a ticket. So it's going to be a serious headache to the coaches, because they really need to ensure that we get the very best, and then after picking the very best that we have, we also ensure that we give them adequate exposure, so that by the time we are going to compete at that level, we have people who have got experience. Because some of these young guys that I'm mentioning, for instance, in the lightweight, they are very bright prospects. They're like Frederick Onyango, Boniface Mose. They are very good, but they have never competed at any international tournament. So for them, taking them to their first international as Olympic qualifier is going to be tricky. So we'll require to get some exposure.